I'm Frank Mazzotta, head football coach at La Habra High School. This is my 23rd season. We've won 18 league championships in that time, working on our 19th right now. Been to 8 CIF finals and won 7 of them. And 14 out of all those years, we've at least been in the semifinals.
Good. So again, this is our second podcast. The first one we had, like I was telling you earlier, we had Cynthia on. Our plan with this podcast is really, it's called No Luck, All Work, and really it's just to point out that any success in any industry or anything that you're doing in life in general, whether it's being a parent, being a football coach, being a nurse practitioner, just the different things that people are into, it took work to get to that point. So obviously with you being an ex-football coach, or my ex-coach, Frank Mazzotta, my coach, and I coached with you for I think 11 years, 12 years now. Yeah. I wanted to get you on just to again give an idea, and I think people they have this thought in their head that La Habra is good because of players, and don't get me wrong, we've had some great players. But there's also behind the scenes that I've personally seen as a player and as a coach, the time and effort that you've obviously put in. And so I really want to really dive into that and give people a picture of the work that you've put in to make La Habra what it is today, So let's start, kind of from the very beginning, because I'm again, a big believer in things happen, things carry over from our experiences. So I know your dad was obviously head football coach for many years. So just you can kind of give us an idea from the very beginning, your life as a kid.
Well, I tell people all the time, I was pretty much in the football world born on third base. I mean, my whole entire growing up was just being around football. That's my memory. Yeah, I mean, we did all this stuff. We played with friends in the streets. I mean, normal childhood stuff, but I was really lucky. I got to go to work with my dad. I mean, we'd spend summers at the college, at Cerritos College, running around. I mean, he'd get there, drop the car doors open, and we're gone the whole day, just doing whatever we wanted. And the players were all like family. Yeah. All the players were all like our older brothers. Even one time my little brother, we were on the campus and, we were little kids, but, popped off to some older guys and, and we knew where to run and we took off right to the football practice, and there was like 80 guys that turned right at these guys and were like, and then they all stopped dead in their tracks and left, they were like our big brothers. And I think that's one of the things that I was extremely fortunate to have, because I got to be around every type of human being in the world. Every kid that went to Cerritos was from every different background or whatever, and they were all like good people. Like I said, just one big giant family. That's great. So that was a great experience in that part of it. But then the football part, as I grew older, I started to, really want to start playing the game, because, you figure 7th, 8th grade, you're getting ready for high school. Man, I got such great experience. I got great mentorship through the actual playing from some of the players. And then coming back and, through high school, my dad wasn't like, hey, I'm going to teach you everything. I had to beg him to take me out to, throw the ball. But when he did, he did. He grew up in football with a great coach at El Rancho, Ernie Johnson. So his background was really in the fundamentals of the game. So when I came back, I was done playing and, not necessarily saying, hey, I want to be a coach. But he asked me to help out with their wide receiver group. And because I think the coach had just quit. Like it was like August, and they were going to start camp like the next week. And he asked me to come out and help. He goes, hey, you know the offense, just come out and help. So I said, okay. Well, I fell in love with it, for sure. And, young, and after a couple of weeks, started thinking, a lot of stuff. And I really learned a lesson quick about keeping my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Until I knew a lot of stuff. Because those coaches that were on that Cerritos staff, they were the old school guys.
Yeah.
They were real solid football coaches. And I made a suggestion in a Sunday meeting one time, and they got shut down. Hey, I think we should run this route combination, blah blah. Thinking I knew what I was doing, and the O-line coach just turned right at me with his little growl, and he's like, "How are we gonna block it?" That I sat there with my eyes wide open. Like, I think I've told you that story. I mean, I didn't speak again the whole season. That was my first year of coaching. I think a lot of young coaches, we start to feel like we kind of know, but then we don't know.
Yeah.
That's the moment I realized I need to know everything, and then I started to say I need to know defense, because someday I might want to be a head coach, or the opportunity might come up on defense.
Yeah.
Just because I coach offense today doesn't mean tomorrow I might have an opportunity to get a job I like, but it's defense. I'm going to say, no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So I really, you talk about time spent,
So let's really quick on that, because I think it's really important, and we talk about it all the time, like just the self-awareness. And I think if there's anything that for me, like my kids, that I want to give them, it's really the self-aware, being who they are, and and understanding that, and being okay with that. No matter what's in the world, what's on social media, what's for you, like, where do you think that self-awareness came from? For something that most of the time, like let's say you have the suggestion, and then they get shut down, and you just at that point you're just like, well, I'm not going to do anything else. But for you, it was like, no. Now that light bulb went up, like you said, and now I'm going to dive into this, and really, when I come back to this guy, I'm going to have the answers. Yep. Where do you think that comes from? Well, for you,
that's a good question. I don't know if I went through my whole life being self-aware. I mean, I think looking back, I probably thought I was pretty cool, way more than I actually was. Honestly,
including the towel your mom used to always tell us about.
The what?
The towel your mom always told us about.
Yeah. But I didn't give myself that towel, so I can't take credit for that towel. But I think as a player, I made mistakes thinking I was better than I was. Mm-hmm. And just what you mentioned, I don't know where it came from, and I know you as a good parent. I know you, and I've seen you. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure, honestly, that I've been great in this regard. It took that guy, and as a player at Cerritos, he was the same guy that MF'd me one time too. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, I had great respect for his knowledge and everything. Yeah. And him mother effing me, as a player, woke me up. I was like, okay. I think you need those things, and I think him telling me, he didn't sugarcoat it. He was never going to be, oh, you know what, you're really doing a good job, and you're going to be something someday. He just looked at me like, quit wasting my time.
Yeah.
Either you get to my level or just shut up. Yep. I mean, that's really what it was. I think the harshness of it and the truth, the reality was everything. And sometimes as a parent, I'm guilty of this. Sometimes as a parent, I don't think you're guilty of that. I think it's the truth sometimes, and I preach it with my players, as we're going to tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. Maybe there was a few things in my life where I got the truth, and it was harsh, and it was hard to swallow at that moment, and I was humiliated. I mean, it was only a room of 6 coaches or whatever, but I did feel like, I swear, my memory right now is that I just sank back in my chair, and I went, like I said, I didn't speak again. That's not a lie. And I looked at the other coach next to me. He was a young coach as well, and he was with the O-line. I looked at him right there in that room. I go, you need to teach me every front. I didn't know.
That's awesome.
And so he tutored me on the front. So I knew, like, back then, we had a sheet of like 10 fronts every team ran, so I didn't know any of that. 80, 40, over, under, 34, I didn't know all the ins and outs, and I made him tutor me that way. I think that was probably it, And then I think you asked me where it is for me. I think I just don't want to be embarrassed. Mm-hmm. I just don't think I want to go. I don't want to put a team on the field and be embarrassed. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to lose a game. Yeah. It doesn't mean you're not going to get blown out. Yeah. But, you're not going to be embarrassed because you didn't do what you needed to do, to put a group out there or whatever. So I think the truth and the reality and the harshness of it, I think that's necessary
Yeah.
for people.
I agree.
Because you have a choice.
I agree.
I mean, I could have walked out of there and said, I don't want to coach anymore.
Yeah.
You know, or, you know what? He's right.
Yeah.
I'm not ready.
Yeah.
My head was a little big, and I thought I was pretty bitching. And reality is, no, you suck right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You have a choice right now, you know? So I think that pushed me to, you know, work. I was single, so I didn't have a lot of other things going on, you know? So, like, when the offense was done, you know, I'd walk to the room down the way, and I'd sit in the defense.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say a word. I'd sit there and, you know, learn as much as I could. And
what would you say the time period was at? Like, so let's say, again, you finished up your offense, and so say you were the offense for 2 or 3 hours. You went to the defense. I mean, what would the time on a daily would you say that you spent during that time period in your life?
Ridiculous. Okay, you know, just my total day itself, you know, whether it would be if I had some classes, maybe finishing up my degree in the early part, working part-time, and then football, and at the junior college thing, and that's back in the days when those guys were, you know, I tell my dad all the time now, I couldn't coach for you now. You know, I mean, geez, you know, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday was like 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
You know, we went over things in huge detail. So, you know, by the time I got to the school, you know, 2:30 in the afternoon, we'd have some pre-practice stuff. Then we'd go to practice, and we'd come back in, and, you know, we'd go over all the game plan thing. So I'm probably leaving, you know, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, you know, on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Which, again, I was single and young, and I had gotten the bug that I wanted to do this thing.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't, and I think that's key for anybody, you know, find something you love to do, because then it's not really work. And you know as well as I do, we're not getting rich doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, I made a little stipend.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was, and honestly, I didn't care if I made it. It wasn't like I cared if I made money. You know, certainly I had benefits of, like, you know, I'm still 21, 22. I was living at home. I still had the benefit of not paying rent and all that. So I had the luxury. Yeah. Not everybody gets that. Yeah. But, you know, it wasn't like I needed money to validate my thing. I was, building for something. And
you said it. I mean, we would do it for free. And there's plenty of times where we did.
Look, 9 months out of the year is free. I mean, go figure that one, right? We're training all these kids and mentoring, you know, for free 9 months a year.
Yeah. So my point in kind of bringing that up also is because part of the success at La Habra wasn't just at La Habra. You know, it's the time and effort that you had spent in your early age of whether it was convenient for you or not. Because, again, there's 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds or whatever, however age you were at the time that probably won't put the time and effort. And, again, whether it's coaching or anything, you know, put the time and effort into really becoming great at what they're doing, you know. Yeah. So it's funny because we've had conversations about that all the time. Just, you know, on the time that's spent that, you know, sometimes parents don't even see. You know, that whether it's not, I'm not just spending time with your kid. Like, we're on the field for X amount of time, but there's still meetings with coach. There's still, I'm at home drawing up plays or whatever it may be. You know, to help or you know, figuring out what other drills we can come up with to help get these kids better.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you got the bug. At what point did you feel like, you know what, I want to make this a career? And, you know, and from a like, let's say a head coaching standpoint, not just you know, I'm just going to coach with my dad. Because for me, like, obviously I got into coaching. I got into it because of Josh. Like, my whole thing was, you know, after I graduated was, you know, growing up, we always felt like if there was anybody that had a chance of making it, it was him. Obviously, physically, he was built differently than the rest of us. So I wanted to put the time and effort into him. And it, you know, like you said, you get into it, and, you know, you get the bug, and, you know, I end up continuing it after he left. But at what point for you did you feel or see that you wanted to make this a career?
Right about then, you know, right away. Like I said, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I think I had changed majors like 3 times. In college, not really sure what it was going to be, but probably having grown up with the sport
Mm-hmm.
and the way the relationships were.
Yeah.
Because once I got into it, I formed great relationships again,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really the draw is, like I mentioned it before, everybody has to find a little bit of purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and for everybody it's different,
Mm-hmm.
I think it provides that sense of purpose. The relationships are far more important than the games
Yeah.
and games
Yeah.
won and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So I think right away I knew that's what I wanted to do. So things kind of shifted that way. And then, being, young and brash and trying to, I applied for head coaching jobs like, 24, 25, I think, my first application and interview,
Mm-hmm.
I was already teaching at El Rancho High,
Mm-hmm.
and they let the coach go, and I'll put my name in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the nice thing is they asked me, and again, I was young, but they asked me to like run the weight room in the spring because the coach had been gone and they hadn't hired anybody. So that was my first dabble into, creating weightlifting groups, and stations, and what are we going to do, and all that kind of stuff. And out of respect, they gave me an interview, whether I deserved one or not.
Yeah.
I was one of the 5 people that got an interview. I'm sure going in, they're like, we'll give him an interview. But, but it was really nice that the principal asked if I would stay on and coach after. He said, he called me and said, look, we're going to go with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he happened to be a well-known coach that had been around the area.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, still with my dad, but I was teaching at El Rancho by that time.
Yeah.
And so I said, sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think high school is probably where I want to be at.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll give it a shot. And I stayed at El Rancho that 1 year. And then I applied again at another school like that next spring and got my first chance to do it,
Yeah. That's awesome. And I think, it goes back to, I always say it's easy connecting the dots, looking backwards, that all these things kind of lined up, or it's harder sometimes to go through that process and like you said, sometimes get the realness of, what actual reality is. I think, but for some people, sometimes it's, and I know it was for me, and I say some people, but it was also for me, understanding and respecting the process that goes into being successful.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about that all the time, as coaches with the kids, is you have to love the process, because the process is the process. Like, there's no way around it.
No, there isn't.
There's no shortcut to making sure that you're successful. And so the more that you can love that process, the better you're going to show up every day. The probably better your performance is going to be, those type of things. So when you think about it, again, looking back now, from the weight room or coaching into the weight room, like, these were all things that were going to prepare you.
Sure.
For as a head coach. Do you think at any point, particular time in there, you felt that way, or you just kind of living in the moment?
Both. Mm-hmm. First of all, I wasn't afraid.
Yeah.
I wasn't afraid to be 24 and then being handed the weight room for a group of kids I didn't know.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I went in there like, intimidated by it. There's a little brashness. You have to probably have a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to have enough knowledge to, not that I had a lot, enough to, and then having resources. I mentioned I was born on third base, football-wise. I had a resource a phone call away, a real one. And so I definitely felt like, at least in my back pocket, I had something that I could use. But you have to go through those things, and you have to not be afraid to fail either. I mean, you could easily, when they say, "Can you set the weight room up and take I could have gone, I've never really done that before, and then shirk your way out of it, or you go for it.
Yeah.
And I think, I was always willing to at least go for it.
And I think you're hitting on a nail, because not only are you willing to go for it, but you know that you're willing to put the time and effort.
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
And again, I think, Brenda Bouchard said that, confidence is not knowing everything. Confidence is knowing that you can figure it out.
Exactly. That's true. Yeah.
And so, and I think for me that, like, if there's things that I look back, that I've gotten myself into, or, that I wanted to do, it was always that for me. Like, I don't care what it is. Like, I'll figure it out. Yeah. And if I can't figure it out, then I'm going to find the resources that I need to make sure that, this happens, But I think a lot of times, I look at my wife, and I think we complement each other really good, because sometimes I'm going to just go, and she's the one like, okay, hold on. No, we got to take care of A, B, and C first before we just go. But at the same time, she would sit there and wait for A, B, and C to line up before we went, if it was up to her.
Yeah.
So it's definitely having that mix, whether it's in a relationship or, in yourself, that, you know what, I can figure this out.
Yeah.
I can find the people that I need to talk to if I don't know what I'm doing at that particular time. And then obviously having that willingness to do that.
Yeah. And you got to, and then maybe there's a little humbleness in there too. I mean, as much as you are brash,
yeah.
There's a little humbleness too. Like, you don't go from A to Z.
Yeah.
I mean, you go from A to maybe A and a half.
Yeah.
It's like, like the first job I got certainly wasn't glamorous by any means. I mean, you need to pay a due.
Yeah.
You just don't take over.
Yeah.
And walk into I think a lot of people, and we've probably seen it, these sports wise, somebody that walks in and is given so-called the golden job.
Yeah.
Sometimes it ends up not turning out really well.
Yeah.
Even though it seems like everything's in place.
Yeah.
Because you haven't had to pay those little dues and those things along the way, where you have to figure out everything.
Yeah.
You need to be able, you're gonna know how to do everything in your organization, because you're, like you said, you're starting off trying to figure it all out, and because you don't know all the answers. Well, I certainly didn't know all the answers, and you need to figure out every little piece of the puzzle. Yeah. Before you just can't. It doesn't go from out of the box to put together.
Yeah. No, and I think you're right. You're right with the humbleness, because I think, like, for us, like for me, my employees now, like I'm constantly telling them, like, we do things really well, but it's not to a point where we can never change things. Like, if you figure out something, like you're on the line, you're doing this and that, and you figure out something that's better, bring it to me. Mm-hmm. And it's also having that. For me, it's always having the approachability. Them being able to come to me with these ideas, or because if you're not approachable, like it's just, for me, like what I've seen. It's really hard for people to come with ideas if they're not comfortable with you. True. Like, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so so you're at that point, you've got your first job.
Yeah.
Artesia.
Yep.
Got some pretty good players, when I remember, conversations that we've had. What's going through your mind? You've been announced as the head coach. Mm-hmm. What's going through your mind as far as next steps for you?
Well, at that point, I'm getting bombarded by everything, and again, like you. So I don't have all the answers, and there are things that I didn't see. Mm-hmm. That's just reality, right? Mm-hmm. You're a little bit brash. You start, you got this, and then I have the meeting, right away, and then it's, well, our budget's in the red, we owe money, and, you take for granted that you might have Booster Club or whatever, mm-hmm. Those are behind the scene things that now you're saying, okay, so it's not just coaching football, that, it's not just the kids.
Yeah.
Because, it's one thing that, now I'm running the weight room, or now I'm running practice, but it's all the other things that go along with it. Then it was getting some coaches to come and
which that coach. Probably gave you a little more respect for your dad at that point.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure.
Wait, you just don't show up and coach and have fun?
Yeah, you didn't bring all that every day, you know, worrying about money and how we're going to do stuff.
Yeah.
That certainly wasn't part of it. But what a great experience. I was fortunate enough to bring 3 to 4 really good guys. They had played at Cerritos, so we kind of all had a similar background. They were great guys. One of the coaches' parents actually took over like our snack shack because I think maybe my first year somehow we were breaking even in the snack shack. He started to say, that really shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So his parents took it over. I mean, God bless them. And they and then we started showing a little profit there. All the little pieces started to fall into place as we kind of grew together. And I think the beginning, my first 3 seasons were all at Artesia. It was really coaching the coaches. Like I had spent a lot of time reading and researching, about how I wanted to coach and stuff like that. So like I think back now, all those meetings we had back then was all coaching the coaches. I mean, I had like a big old giant manual, and it was all about how the coaches were going to coach, because you just don't bring in 20-something-year-olds.
Yeah.
And it all just fits together.
Yeah.
A lot of it was coaching the coaches, how we're going to work with the kids.
What about your manual? Was that something that like, did your dad have a manual or like where?
No. I don't know why. Even as a coach at Cerritos, when I only had the receivers, I created a receiver manual. I mean, everything from how we line up to the releases and routes.
Yeah.
I mean, and I still keep a copy of it. On those old rudimentary, freaking dot matrix printed freaking things. But I don't know. I just felt it was important. And then I had coaches' folders. It was really nice when I came to La Habra. That year I had 2 interviews, Walnut High and La Habra, and I brought the folders with me, so I could show whoever's doing the interviews, like this is kind of
the stuff that you're bringing.
Yeah. That was really important. I knew there was more to it than just going out on the field.
Yeah.
And it really made a difference, I think.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, and I think even besides that part of it, it's also you set an expectation.
True.
From the coaching standpoint, that this is the expectation.
Yeah. 100%.
And that's where, that's what I'm asking. Like, did your dad have it, man? Like, how did that even come into play? But that for you, again, to kind of put that together, but it also was probably based on more of what you needed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
True.
that's kind of where it probably started, was something you needed for yourself. And you're like, well, hey, this guy can use this too. Here you go,
I think you're 100% right. Maybe I look back at it now and say maybe, number one, it was for me because it detailed everything that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was growing as a young coach when I made the coach's manual. When I made that, I was the coach too.
Yeah.
I was the young
100%.
26-year-old head coach or whatever, working with 21 and 22-year-olds who were coaching 17-year-olds.
I would always tell my running backs, and quarterbacks too, after I got into quarterbacks, but like, I just mainly, from the very beginning, when I kind of came up with the phrase, and I would always tell them, like, when you can teach what I'm teaching you, then I fully understand. You know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it was true. Like, as the running backs, like, like that light bulb goes on. Like, oh, this is what we're trying to do with the play. Oh, this is how it develops. Or this, when that light bulb finally went off, and then they were coaching up the younger guys. Then for me, I was like, okay, he's got it. He understands it. But I think it's really important that we are setting that expectation. And then I think you, by coming up with something that you needed, without really realizing it, it was something that you were setting an expectation for these younger guys that maybe sometimes that need that guidance, that couldn't come up with a manual on their own. That's really, like, I always knew about the manuals. Obviously we would have one at La Habra, and you would always share some of your stuff with us, which kind of, I guess, get into my next thing, because throughout this process you were also continue to grow on your end, like you said, as a coach. This was when you got to La Habra. Had you already started traveling and visiting different places, or did that happen mainly at La Habra?
No, my dad. The first trip I ever took My dad was really good friends with Joe Gibbs with the Washington Redskins.
I remember that.
So, I mean, when Joe Gibbs got the Washington Redskins jobs,
Yep.
my dad, our family, the Gibbs family, one other family, we went over to Seafair Inn, which was, now the Pancake House. That's where we had dinner to celebrate Joe's getting the job with the Redskins as a kid.
Yeah.
But it was the 91 fall camp. So that was actually the 91 season they won the Super Bowl. We didn't know that when we went, but my dad sent me and another young offensive line coach that I played with at Cerritos who went on, and he came back too. So he put the two of us on a plane for a week, and we spent every day with the Redskins in their camp, and we lived with the players and
That's what an experience.
Yeah,
man.
it was awesome. We sat in meetings, and again, being young and dumb, I just sat there and we watched video, and we were at every practice, and we got to see 2 scrimmages. They had the Steelers come in to Hershey area where they were at, and then we went to Lehigh. They scrimmaged the Jets. So I got to see behind the scenes NFL level stuff. And honestly, it's no different than what you and I did, at La Habra this year. It's a meeting, it's practice, it's it's game plan. It's it's the same at all levels. So that was my first one, and then when I came at Artesia, we just didn't have the money, and I was young and didn't have any money myself.
Yeah.
Came to La Habra and had a booster club set up. Wasn't like making tons of money, but it had a booster club set up.
Yeah.
And so my first season goes by. In that spring, we had one season under our belt. The spring comes, and again, I keep telling you, born on third base. Well, there's Joe Gibbs I just mentioned,
Yeah.
and then Norm Chow. My whole dream in life was to go there, and then my brother ended up going there. And my dad and Norm Chow were teammates in college and friends ever since. So
you say go there, you're talking about Brigham Young University. Yeah.
And then so they were the cutting edge of all passing game at the time. Extremely respected around the country. Again, a lot of the stuff. First of all, offensively, that was my whole thing, was their offense. And I loved the way they almost kind of carried a little bit what we did at La Habra, we'll play anybody kind of thing. They were whack, but they're playing Alabama's and they're playing all those teams, without fear.
Yeah.
I loved their idea of, when they first started out, they didn't have the talent to do some of the things they wanted, so they went out and threw the ball every play and created opportunity. And Lavelle Edwards had said, it doesn't matter what talent level we get, because by that time, by 1999 when we went, they had really good players and Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks and stuff like that. He said, we're not going to change.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
And we're not changing.
Yeah.
I love that about it. It just so happened in 99, they had come off of, I want to say they were top 5 in the nation defensively. And people didn't realize they always played pretty good defense too. So it was a no-brainer. So myself and 2 of my coaches got on a plane, and I'm pretty sure the boosters had the money to buy the plane ticket. It was cheap, and then we stayed at a little hotel. 3 of us jammed in a hotel room. We got there, red carpet treatment, and I was really fortunate. The 2 coaches that went with me, young coaches, but they like to work like me and study. So, you got to remember, we're up crack of dawn. We're at the school.
Yeah.
The coaches gave us red carpet. We're meeting with the coaches. They had a video room, and it was really cool because at the time Georgia was down the hall. Their staff had flown in to learn the passing game.
Yeah.
And here's the high school Habra team.
Yeah.
We got our little room with all the video, and we'd go to practice, and we laughed about it later because we're in the film room after practice, and it's 10 o'clock at night. We haven't eaten, and one of us looks at our watch and like, geez, coach, it's 10 o'clock at night, and we open the door and the place is dark. They didn't even bother. Yeah. That's how awesome they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the day we left, they asked if we wanted any video, and I made
Send
a
us
list
one of everything.
things. Yeah, I made a list of things, and it was just if anything happens in life, sometimes timing is really important. Ironically, they were in the WAC and they had like Rice on their schedule, and Rice ran like a wing type offense. I mean, you don't see it anymore.
Yeah.
And then Air Force ran option, and so you had those weird offenses, and so we got to see the 4-3 defense line up against those things, and we learned things like when there was a wing. They use a technique called snug technique, which we ended up adopting and using every other team we ever played that had a wing. You just didn't have your 4-3 end in a traditional alignment. You did this to snug them up. And why? Well, we got the answer. Well, it makes it hard. Now the wing and the tight end have to decide, how are we going to block this guy? You can't just turn him out. You can't just knock him down. I mean, there was so many little nuances that we picked up. So it wasn't just an offensive trip. Hell, it probably was more beneficial on defense because I was already running Norm's offense. And I went, and I think probably the biggest takeaway I got was just asking Norm Chow, the guru of offense, how do you get the running back to throw the ball in the flat all the time? He said, well, we don't get mad at him.
Quarterback.
If he misses it, don't get mad at the quarterback. If he doesn't throw the go route, that's wide open. He throws the ball in the flat. We just don't get on him about it, because they made a living on hitting the back,
of course,
out of the backfield. So, that was the beginning of the trips, and then next year we went to Oklahoma, and that was huge. Ironically, again, I was with the Redskins when they were Super Bowl champs heading into the season. That spring, me and two of my coaches flew back to the Sooners, and that was the spring that they ended up winning the national title that fall. Josh Heupel was the quarterback, who's now the head coach at Tennessee. He was at UCF. Quentin Griffin was a running back. They had some really good players, and they were running essentially a BYU-style offense, pass-wise and stuff. And so that was an incredible experience. And again, when Bob Stoops walks out of the office, when you walk in, and he's the guy first greeting you, welcoming you, and telling you his dad was a high school coach, and he's happy to have you here, and whatever you need, and we'll set time aside for you. Brent Venables is now the DC at Clemson, and he met with the defensive guys. Wow. And I got Chuck Long, who was the quarterback coach, to meet with me. And the only difference was with Oklahoma, they didn't let us have video. And then the following year we went to Oregon State. And again, that was the fall they had won 11-1, crushed Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl or whatever. So we came in after, but it was Dennis Erickson, who was a coach's coach. Everybody loves Dennis Erickson. And it was carte blanche again. I mean, third straight trip, and it was, open doors. And I came home with more video. And they were 4-3, cover 4, exactly like us. Couldn't have been better. And that's when we got the idea about the single back counter, when we started doing with Josh with that rock step so he could go downhill. Those little nuggets that we got. But super fortunate. I think a couple of years later, we went to Boise. Again,
that story.
So, that's the beginning of the trips and stuff like that. And they were all timely. Things we needed. And,
And I think for people, it's really understanding that it takes that to be great and have success at something. It takes that out of the box, get out of your norm, get out of your comfortable space. You could have said, I got a new job. I'm at La Habra, and I'm gonna do what I did at Artesia and just keep doing that. But looking back, like for me, like from a player into a coach, I was coming in at a really, really good time in La Habra. And again, I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. It was at the time Buena Park wasn't. They were probably the last in the league, getting stomped out by everybody. And I was, 1 year away from going to Buena Park, because that's where we lived at the time. And so happened to my mom and dad bought a house right in La Habra.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And
that's crazy.
I'm 1 year from being a CIF champion, from being the bottom of the barrel in league, But what I'm trying to say is, going for you could have been doing or continue to do what you've been doing, or you think outside the box and you look at from a bigger picture of, okay, I've been we've had success. You had some success at Artesia. But how do I get to that next level? And again, it's reaching out to resources. And if you didn't have the resources, looking for those resources. And I think for me, it's always trying to find, I'm always networking. I'm always trying to talk to somebody, because you just never know who you're going to talk to that later on, either they can benefit from you or you're benefiting from them, or having that network, you know. But so you have these, you know, obviously I know, you know, a lot of those things got adopted those next couple of years. Your first year at La Habra, you had pretty good player, pretty good team. At what point did you know, from the things that you had kind of adopted and brought into La Habra, at what point did you know, oh, you know what, we're going to be pretty good? Or did you not? Like, it just kind of after the fact, you're like, damn, we were pretty good.
Well, you know, to go out and do those things, you really got to humble yourself and say, I don't know everything.
Yep.
You know, which there's nothing wrong with that. You know,
Yep.
We had the great player. I mean, I came to La Habra. You know, in La Habra at the time, you know, it'd been 11 years since they had a league championship. I don't even know how many playoff appearances. It wasn't anything spectacular.
Yep.
So it wasn't like I came to La Habra saying, "Oh my God, this is going to be great."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that certainly wasn't it. You know, I tell people all the time it was close to home.
Yep.
That was my number one thing.
But that might have been the drive to go out and make sure that you were visiting these other places,
right?
Because of that. Again, going back to almost like a necessity of,
Sure.
You know what, I'm not stepping into this thing, you know, in a pretty good shape. So let me go out and figure some more things out.
Because we had good kids.
Yeah.
They were good kids, you know, and like every high school football program is going to have some good kids. You know, the kids that are out there working their butts off. Very good kids.
Yeah.
But we had an outstanding running back. He was a junior my first year. Things were built around him for sure, because he was head and shoulders above, you know, a lot of kids. And, you know, there was a little growing pains the first season. You know, we didn't have a stellar record. I thought by the end of preseason, you know, we got a chance. We won our first league game. We blew Troy out of the water, who was picked to win the league. And Josh had 374 yards rushing. He had 3 or 4 runs on that video. And I had coaches come in, like back in the day, they had to come to you because it just wasn't enough. You know, and he goes, Coach, there's 3 or 4 runs on this guy's one game that are better than all the highlights I've seen across the country. I think it was Texas A&M or Ohio State or somebody.
Yeah.
Then he dislocates his elbow the second league game. I mean, he was running and stumbled and put his elbow down, and it doinked on him. And so we lost those next 3 tight ball games. I mean, ridiculous. And then he came back the last game. We won that one. So maybe my first year, we would have competed for sure for a league title even that year. And then the next year, you know, he's definitely the focal point. And we got a good group of kids back. Trying to convince the kids who had been beaten down for a decade that they could really do this. You know, that was my chore that year. You know, I started the first senior meetings that year. We sat in my living room. There was 11 seniors. Sat down in my little tiny living room, and we put the goals together for the year, convincing them that they could actually do it and just put it on paper and get after it. And then the next year, we won the league title, but we lost in the first round of the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. That's the year where I had to make a big shift. Didn't have the running back to lean on. We had a good one coming back, but it just didn't have. We weren't going to run counter and you know, sweep, backer sweep, and power and dominate people. Because Josh was that guy; he could do it. So we ended up. I knew the change had to be. We really need to go and put our kids in space more. You know, which is no problem. I mean, we took the BYU offense and just took the halfback out. That's really it. And but going to BYU the spring before, Oklahoma was spread. I had gone to empty clinics, and I mean, I was out there that whole off season, just whatever I could get information wise. You know, how to do it. You know. That was our plans. We knew going forward it was never going to be just running back dominated. You know? No, and I think it's also, again, seeing that, you know, and kind of projecting it as coaches. We always try to, you know, project what's, you know, whether it's depth charts or those type of things. But you just never know,
it's no different. We were talking about the NFL right now. They got projections all the time that don't work out.
That's right.
They do all this time and effort into, finding the best guy, and he ends up not being the best guy.
True.
But and I guess it brings up to my next point of just over time, you having the ability to adjust.
Yeah.
Knowing that when things are not always going to work out the way you plan they're going to be. I mean, obviously in football, you have injuries and you have different things that come up, and you have to have the ability to adjust. For you, where do you think that it comes from as far as your ability to adjust has been great, because you can't have success as long as you've had without the ability to adjust, because every season's not perfect. Mm-hmm. Where do you think, from your standpoint, where do you think that has come from, or what's helped you with that part of it?
Well, I think ultimately is being humble, because you can't, if you just have all the answers, then you're never going to change. Why would I adjust?
Yeah,
we always do this. I think that being humble, and I think having enough knowledge to see. So, I got a lot of experience, my eyes.
Yeah.
And so, you start to look, and you look a little bit further ahead. I mean, that year, we're playing that year, and true story. So, Josh Herrera is the guy. I mean, he's on Fox Sports West. He has a little feature. He signs with Oregon. I mean, and so we lose in the first round. We go 5-0 in league, okay? And at the time, league championship was the biggest thing ever.
Yeah.
Hadn't had one in 12 years.
Yeah.
So the season ends. Very soon after, I'm sitting and thinking to myself, I just had the best player I might ever coach, because you don't know. And we lost in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
I went to the finals.
Yeah.
Sat in the top row at the finals. It was at Mount Sac, and it was Bonita versus Brea, the 1999 CIF finals in our division.
Yeah.
I'm looking down the field going, I'm never going to see this game. I really thought that. They had a running back named DeAndre Bellin that was going to Florida State. They had a receiver that was going someplace. Bonita had two dudes that were like Josh, but they had two.
Yeah.
And Brea at the time was one of the local programs that was stellar.
Yeah.
They had the quarterback that went somewhere. They had the D lineman went to Boise. I mean, they had dudes, and thinking, man, I think the realization set in that I got to be better.
Yeah.
We have to be better if we're going to get here. And the irony of the whole thing, the next year we're in the finals. So
yeah.
I think just being humble and realizing, man, I don't have the answers. I have to be better, and having the vision.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I think sometimes it's, for people, it's the humbling part is an issue, that, whether it's embarrassment or whether it's, but, we talked about it before. I mean, it's going to be a lot worse, the embarrassment on the other side, by not humbling ourselves now and preparing the way we should prepare, and then, getting embarrassed later,
I think that I mentioned it earlier, I don't like to be embarrassed. I think that I've heard people say it, I don't say it, but I've heard people say that, it's not that they love winning, it's that they hate losing.
Yeah.
And I think, maybe for me, it's always a fear of embarrassment. Like, I don't want to, I just don't want that to be my case, and I'm going to try to do everything I can so it doesn't happen. Maybe that's more motivating to me than anything, but I always take responsibility for it.
100%.
I mean, I have to be prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think just, like I mentioned, having the experience, so we can see little things. You coached with me for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, me like this. Like, if there's something we need to do, I'm not embarrassed to tell the kids, whatever we're doing right now isn't good enough.
Yep.
And then, okay, in today's drill, we need to address an issue. Okay, the issue is we're not reach blocking very good, for example. Yeah. So we're going to do this, defensively, our run fits aren't very good. So now we're going to do a run period where we're not tackling, we're just fitting, whatever the case may be. It's not like, oh my God, we can't change now because people think we don't know anything.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
We got to make sure we're doing what we need to do.
And I think from like, especially when I was there, I felt as much as we were doing a lot of things differently, in that earlier part, we were speed training. Nobody was speed training. The weight room I had been into other places, not obviously playing or been there, but, talked to the coaches, and our weight room was definitely, what we did in the weight room was definitely different than other people. But for me, like looking back, as much as we were doing so many things different and ahead of schedule, I think the biggest difference was the detail. And again, I guess it goes, now thinking about it now, it goes back to your manual.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like our detail, or our attention to detail, was different than other, not only other teams that we played, but just from a coaching level. I really felt like we always had a kind of upper hand there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I never thought about like the manual. Like, I mean, because again, that's what the manual was. It was all the details.
Yeah.
But we were 100%. I mean, we were always coaching from that one step. That it made the biggest difference. And we were adjusting at times. We were like, oh, we're gonna rock step. No, we're not gonna rock step now. We're gonna step sideways, or we're gonna go forward.
Yeah.
Adjusting up with all those times, and just making sure that we were doing what we felt was best at that particular time.
Yeah.
So we fast forward. You are now a 7-time CIF champion. I don't know, what is it? 19 league championships.
18 out of 22.
18 out of 22. Just dominance. And I'm gonna end this in the podcast with these. It's 2 questions. Okay. So the first question for you is, what would a Mazzotta today tell? Were you at Cerritos? Were you 20, 21?
Yeah, 22-ish. Yeah.
Because again, there's other coaches that are now coming out of college and getting into coaching, and like I said, I was that guy, and obviously we know plenty of other guys that are getting into coaching. So your advice would work or help them, but what would you tell a 19, 20, 21-year-old Frank Mazzotta?
If you love it, if it's something you really want to do, you got to go all in on it, and don't be afraid to work. So, and I realize everybody's situation is different. Like I said, I was finishing classes. I had part-time job. I was gone all day. It wasn't, forget about your rest time. You're young. Spend every second, whatever your passion is, spend every second on it. You don't need to sit around and watch TV. You don't need it. I'm not trying to be mean, but you don't need to hang out with your friends. Because if you're trying to build something that's going to last a lifetime, do it when you're young.
Yeah.
I would remind myself to be humble. Just shut up. You don't know everything. You don't need. And I think I've always kind of been decent at this. I mean, you don't know it so much because you played for me and coached with me, but there's times when I don't say anything. I'm in a crowd of people. I don't talk about myself. If people don't know I coach football, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I listen.
Yeah.
And I'll wait. And if somebody asks me a question, I'll answer. But I'm not standing up there just talking. I would say be humble, be quiet, learn as much as you can. Any young coach advice, I would say learn every position, everything. Learn how the snapper snaps, how the holder holds, how the kicker plants, how the defensive end's feet are, what the linebacker's eyes should be at, how the nose guard lines up. Learn all of it, especially if you think you're going to be a head coach. You don't want to get stuck, because high school coaching is tough as it is. And it's not like, I'm the head coach at USC and anybody I call, they're going to die trying to coach for you. It's tough. You coached and you had jobs and you had a life, and it's not that simple. So you got to be there. You got to be able to understand that, hey, I got to know this. I got to know that. I got to do that. I would say those 2 things: humble yourself, be quiet, put every ounce of effort into it if that's what you really love to do, and learn every aspect of it. I think, knowing you right now, and I know your business, I'm sure you know every detail. And I know you're humble enough. If the bathroom needs to be cleaned,
You
I
clean.
know you.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to do it because it's necessity, but you're also going to show an example.
Mm-hmm.
You know how I was at La Habra. If the water needed to get out, I'll bring the water out.
Yep.
If we need cones, I'll grab the cones.
Yep.
The ball needs to be pumped up, I'll pump it up.
Yep.
I'm not above
Yep.
doing all that stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
We're all here to kind of make this go, you know?
Yeah.
And
And setting that example. I mean,
Yeah.
you always, and I can obviously be a testament to that. Like you've always set that example from a leadership standpoint. And I mean, even when people would ask me, like, how La Habra has had so much success, and I always tell them it's top down. It really starts with you and the expectations that you set. But then at the same time, you're setting that expectations while you're also doing them. One thing's to set expectations and like, here, you need to go do this, and I'm gonna go sit behind this desk. That was never you. I mean,
No.
you were.
But again, I'm selfish. I love it. Like in the weight room.
Yeah.
You and I had heard stories over the years. We
Yeah.
did. And
Yeah.
every coach at La Habra was in the weight room.
Yeah.
And then I know plenty other staffs that would write a workout on the wall.
Yeah.
Go sit in the office and
Yeah.
expect the kids to do it. Like,
Yeah.
we were there.
Yeah.
We were there with the kids, and we created relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and they trusted you
Mm-hmm.
they trusted you more than anybody in their life, maybe.
Yeah.
Because you were there, and
Yeah.
and you. How are they going to talk to you if you're not there?
Yeah.
How are you going to get anything more out of them if you're not there?
Yeah.
And they don't trust you and believe you and
Yeah.
care for you, and they don't know that you care for them. But
Yeah.
the biggest thing is you got to be around to do it. And so it never bothered me. And I want the kids to know I'm not some guy on a throne.
Yeah.
I'm dragging the water cart.
Yeah.
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 I told the coaches just recently, just a quick little thing. So this is like this year, my 23rd season, blah, blah. But the coaches were getting ready for practice, and I told them, get out there, get with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put the chairs away.
Mm-hmm.
We have meetings right now, and because of COVID, we're splitting up.
Yeah.
So all I have the players do, because I have to meet in another room, I tell them to stack the white chairs outside the office.
Yeah.
I'll put them away.
Yeah.
I mean, and I tell the coaches, get out there.
Yeah.
I'll put them away.
Yeah.
No, coach, we'll help you. No.
Yeah.
Go get with the kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll stack them up.
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
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 I'd rather have you guys with the kids, getting them warmed up and
Of course.
getting things going,
Yeah. So the second part of that question is 30 years from now, what is the Frank Mazzotta the most proud of? So if you're anything like senior, you'll be retiring around that time.
Yeah. Close. Darn close.
What are you most proud of what you've accomplished during that, during your career, your life, your anything?
Man, that's a really tough one. Number one, I think I'm proud of being a good son. I think I've been a good son to my mom and dad. I think I made them proud, and got a great relationship with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'll be there for them as they start to, head into the sunset. I'm very fortunate they're healthy and things are good at this point. The father thing is still in balance, as fatherhood's a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
The race isn't over yet.
Yeah.
So the jury's out on that. I'm going to reserve, I want to be a good father.
Yeah.
I say that sitting here right now, knowing that I know I made lots of mistakes in that regard. But I'd like to be able to say that, at some point.
Yeah.
And then, because I can't say that today. Oh, I've been a good father. I still have a 14-year-old daughter and a son who's 26 who still needs a lot of guidance. I'm proud of the football stuff for sure, but it's certainly not something that I ever just sit there and pat myself on the back for, because I think you mentioned it early. We've had great kids.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it without great kids.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of the families have been really good families.
Yeah.
You know, it takes all the parts, the coaching. Just take your family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what a great family to have gone through La Habra. Would La Habra be the same without your family?
Mm-hmm.
Chances are no. You know, and there's more families similar to yours, and then to have great coaches. You know, very fortunate. That's another thing that has been something that I've been lucky to have, is the amount of guys that have stayed and coached.
Yeah.
You know, for whatever reason, I hope it has something to do with me.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I hope it has something to do with the way we did things, the way I tried to do things. I tried to give coaches credit.
Yeah.
I tried to give coaches a chance to really be responsible for it. You know, and again, I'll pass the credit on to anybody. I certainly don't sit there and go, "Oh, I did this, I did that." No, it's always we. You know, the kids and the great coaches that we had. You being one of them, a player and coach. You know, I think I'd be proud of that. That coaches wanted to stay. You know, I mean, look how long you stayed with all the things you had to do in your life.
Yeah.
And you still came.
Yeah.
You were still part of it. And, I think I'm proud of that part. You know, the relationships that were formed, and seeing the kids go on and having success, and looking at you and look how your life's turned out. You're just one of them. Yeah. You know, but look how things have turned out for you,
and just different than not just football. You know,
sure.
Because there's so many times, you know, we got to constantly remind the kids that there's life after football. You know, some get fortunate to make it to the league, which obviously you've had plenty of players that do that. Some get fortunate enough to play in college, which you've had X amount of players do that. But it stops at some point. And it's who you are at the end of all that. And I think you said it from the very beginning of the podcast, was that your dad, what he created at Cerritos was very family atmosphere. And I know, obviously, firsthand that that's really what you did, not tried to, but what you created at La Habra. I mean, people say it all the time. You know, it's like, you know, even the newspapers said one time, you know, you could pick up La Habra and put it in the Midwest somewhere, and it would fit right in. You know, the town shutting down, and everybody's at the games, and you know, those type of things. But as much as you don't want to give yourself credit, because that's obviously who you are, I will definitely give you that credit, because you set that expectation. You went over and above what an average head football coach had done, and not now. I know, being older, that not everybody does that. So thank you for allowing me to have that experience, and as a player, as a coach. You know, we were really spoiled. You know, you think back at it, and all the championships that we were winning at the time. You know, it was the norm for us.
Yeah, it was.
And I didn't realize till after that. You know, wait, hold on, guys don't win CIFs all the time. Like, wait, guys don't have at least one. You know, it's, you know, we were really, really fortunate. But it really started with you and the vision that you had and the time and effort.
I appreciate that. Yeah,
time and
it was a
effort
labor
there.
of love, though.
Yeah,
you know, I certainly loved it. You know.
Sure.
And I never took it for granted. You know, I kept thinking, like, I'll never go to the final. We lost it the next year. We went to the finals. And lost it. Yeah. I'm never going to another final. 2 years later, we won it. You know, it's like, you never took it for granted. It was always fighting for the next one. And I didn't ever want to let the kids down. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah. Like, we didn't rest. Yeah. We didn't rest as coaches, or, you know, because we had one. Oh, we're done now. Yeah. No, because it wasn't fair to the next group. Yeah. Come along. They wanted to win one too. Yeah. You know, so that was part of the motivation too. We didn't want to let the kids down and the families down that were sending their kids to us. Yeah. You know, of course. Well, it was fun, man. Yeah, Thanks for coming on, and I appreciate you again sharing your experience. Because, like I said, for us, it's really trying to give these experience to people so that they can kind of see, you know, the behind the scenes and the common denominator that everybody that we're going to have on the podcast has, and it's just the time and effort that people put into it to bring success. Absolutely. You know? So labor of love. Yeah. Thanks. I love it. Yeah. Thank you.